Hey guys, Matt here. My grandmother here will be telling a story about our family members, mostly because of my grandfather and my dad. That was the story, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you. You want the one about the socks?
Yes, the socks.
Well, my pop always put his socks at the edge of the wastebasket every night when he took them off. Run for your life! Jefferson, that's not nice. And then,
Hey, where's my cup? I didn't use Run for your life.
so one night we saw your dad emptying the wastebaskets. We also saw him push the socks into the wastebasket. And so Pop said, No, don't throw my socks away. And your dad looked at him and said, Well, why are you putting them in the wastebasket? He said, I don't put them in the wastebasket. I put them on the wastebasket. So your dad looked very puzzled and he said, Well, when I put something on the wastebasket or in the wastebasket, you're supposed to throw it away. You're not supposed to just hang your socks there. So, of course, Pop-Up was embarrassed. He said, Well, I always mean to take them down to the laundry, but you throw them away before I get a chance to do it. We used to go to the Caribbean to stay, especially to St. Thomas. And we stayed in a house there. And while we stayed in the house, Pop and your dad would go swimming. Well, this one day they went out and went swimming, and they both noticed something really strange swimming.
What?
It was like a big flat thing. And
You gotta tell me more about it.
so Pop looked at his son and said, Swim, Jeff. And your dad said, I'm swimming, Dad, as fast as I can. And I saw them out the window and I said, Oh, they're racing. They weren't racing. They were trying to get away with whatever that was. So they said, We will check the water first the next time we decide to go that far out.
Wait, you're like, what was it?
They weren't sure. And I didn't see it.
Tell them another story.
Okay. Another story about going to the Caribbean and getting in the water. Jefferson, don't do that. That's too loud. This one time, we got on a boat, all four of us. And the man who owned the boat said to your dad, Would you like to steer? Because it was
the Clevelands are winning.
Cleveland's winning? Oh.
100. 100 to what? 100 to 93.
Oh, how much time do they have left? So, while we were on the boat.
Yeah, while you're on the boat, Nana doesn't put her feet up.
The man said, the boat.
We are 101 now. By 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Oh.
3 minutes.
So the guy that owned the boat looked at your Aunt Jackie and said, Would you like to steer? And she said, Oh, yes, I'd like to drive the boat. Whereupon your dad said, I don't know why you're going to let her steer. We're just going to go in a circle. And I said, No, Jefferson, if you help her, she will just drive straight. And he said, No, she won't. I said, Yes, she will. Just help her. So he made a funny face. And then he said, Come on, Jackie, drive straight. Straight? That's not straight. You're turning the wheel. She said, No, I'm not. And guess what we were doing? The boat was going around in a circle. And your dad said, I told you she was going to do that. But yeah. And you know how old your dad was when he learned how to drive a car?
What?
Oh, probably about 12, 11 or 12.
Did you let him drive?
Of course not.
So how can you drive a car? How can you learn how to drive a car if he's 12?
Well, we used to have a riding mower, and Grandpa Weaver taught your dad how to drive the mower so that he could mow sometimes. And so, and then the camp that your dad went to, whenever your dad had a session of swearing, he'd have to go to the farm for punishment. And that was to work on the farm and help take care of the horses. And for some reason or other, he didn't really like the horses. That he, got to drive pretty well.
But I want to be at the horses, and I want to drive a mower. He's lucky.
Well, I'll tell you this. Pop didn't believe that your dad was taking my car. When we would go out sometimes, after they got rid of the babysitter, they told me they were big and they didn't need a sitter. They were teenagers, and we could leave them alone for an hour or two. No way.
How do you know he was driving the car?
First of all, when you turn a car on and you put your hand on the hood will
Not
be
talking too much.
the hood will be hot.
Oh.
And that's because the motor was running. And your dad has some stories about himself driving.
But did he know that you're supposed to be 16 and drive?
He knew.
Then why did he do that?
Because he wanted to, and he made Aunt Jackie go with him so that if she told on him, he would say, "Well, you went with me."
Yeah. How old was she?
Well, if he was 12, she was 11.
Oh, I thought she was 10.
No. Your dad had a lot of adventures.
Where did he go?
He would go over to
Welcome back, guys. It is back to Five Nights at
Jefferson,
Freddy's.
you're not even watching the video. If you're just making up a video.
He would go to his friend Todd Pitt's house, and then Todd would get in the car with him, and they'd go off.
Who's Todd?
Your dad's best friend when he was in high school.
Who's his best friend?
Yeah.
He
name
just
is
here.
Todd Pitts. That he had another best friend at the time, and his name was Brian Friedman. And then one time your dad and Brian met these two girls at Shaker Square. And they had taken a Greyhound bus from Berea
Oh, yeah.
to Cleveland so that they could go on a date. Well, they went on this date, but the problem was they didn't get back in time to put the girls back on the Greyhound bus back to Berea. They missed it. So they had to take the girls home. Well, Berea's not real far. It's just outside of Cleveland, but you have to go all the way to the west side and then outside the city. Well, they got over there okay. It was coming home that they had trouble because they kept driving past the exit for Pepper Pike, and they were going too far.
He was 12?
Huh?
He was 12? He was 12?
No, then he was about 16. He had his license. So, turn that down, Jefferson. Jefferson.
I'm turning it down.
So they just kept driving back and forth. So finally, I said, if you can't follow my directions, I'm going to tell you where to sit, and I'll come out and drive where you are, and then you can follow me. So you can take Brian home and you can come home. But they finally figured it out and they got here. But it was 2:00 in the morning.
2:00 in the morning. You stayed up until 2:00 in the morning.
I stayed up to make sure he got home. So sometimes Papa did. But this night, Brian got home because they were driving Brian's father's car. And Brian called your dad and said, "Oh, my dad wasn't too mad. He didn't say anything other than, oh, it's about time you got home." But what his father had already figured out is Brian played tennis for Orange. He was on the tennis team. So at 8:00 in the morning, he called over here and said, "Jeff, can I borrow your bicycle? Mine's not working right." And your dad says, "What do you need the bicycle for?" He says, "Well, my dad won't let me drive the car to the tennis match. He said I might get lost." So Brian had to pedal all the way from, because he lived just up on Bremerton. So he had to pedal all the way from Bremerton all the way over to the high school.
How did he get lost?
That was a joke. His father was saying, well, you got lost last night, so I'm not letting you borrow the car today because you're going to get lost. So
But he's like right. He goes to school every day on the bus or something.
Yes, but he doesn't have to take a bicycle to go somewhere to play in a tennis match. And of course, he lost his tennis match. Because, you're pedaling all the way to the school. And then when
Then you run, you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yes, he was very tired. When he came back and brought the bicycle back here, I said, "Brian, how'd you do?" He said, "I lost." I said, "How'd you lose?" He said, "I was too tired." I said, "How'd you get so tired?" He said, "My dad wouldn't let me drive the car and I had to ride Jeff's bicycle. That's how I lost."
Oh, I get it now. So his father said you're going to get lost, and he lost the game. Oh, I get it now.
But his father was pointing out that if you can't get home at the time,
But they were
You're
far away now.
well, first of all, we didn't know they were going far away. They told us they were going to movies at Shaker Square. They didn't say they were going to have to take these girls all the way to Berea.
Wait, did they meet those girls before?
I don't know where they met.
Cause if they're like, if they just met them, why would they have a date already?
They hadn't just met them, but I don't know where they met. But the thing is, if you know somebody has to take a bus back home, you have to make sure you get them to the bus stop on time.
Yeah, the bus stop was like, wait, yeah, go.
And they never went back to Berea either. I think that was the only date they had with those girls. But